Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream where I welcome questions from the YouTube community. It is 12 on Friday, April the 25th. Obviously, the blank game week 34 UK deadline is 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Over the next 55 minutes up to 1 o'clock, I'll be answering dilemmas from the YouTube community as order in submission. I've got nothing particular to announce, so let's get straight into the questions. CMP is first. Says, hi James, should I take a hit for playing goalkeeper? If so, who do you recommend? I'm thinking Alisson or Sanchez. Defenders are Robinson, Aït-Nouri and Trippier, wildcard 35. Literally had this discussion with a number of our advanced tier patrons on a call yesterday about the idea of taking a hit for a goalkeeper for just 1 week. And I just wouldn't bother, mate. I would not bother. Not in your circumstance of wildcarding in 35. If you're without a goalkeeper this week and obviously have used your wildcard, then by all means I would do it and proceed with that goalkeeper. The reality of taking a hit for 1 game week, nah. I just would not bother. I'd rather go a player short. Attacking player, yes. If you take me, I got 9 players, or kind of 8.5 because I'm not expecting Castagne to start. So yeah, -4 for 2 attacking players on agenda. For a goalkeeper, no, wouldn't bother, mate. I'd just go short. Greg Cook says, hi James, on wildcard and looking for some differential picks for the remainder of the season and a differential captain to boost me from 180 overall rank, largely down to your sound guidance. Nothing to do with my guidance, mate. It's down to you pressing the right button. So congrats on a great rank. Looking for differential picks for the remainder of the season. What's differential now might not look differential in a couple of weeks. So something like Johan Visser, I think is going to be sort of really popular next week once we hit game week 35. Boomo's going to go back into a lot of teams. They look like differentials now, but they're not once you get there. Something like Jared Bowen might get largely ignored. I think West Ham's fixtures are still pretty good for the running. In terms of captain this week, I wouldn't necessarily force it. I think Mo Salah's the best captain by a distance, but if you are going against, I wouldn't look any further than Alexander Isak. Actually, Ipswich confirmed sort of missing around about 9 players this weekend. So from a captaincy perspective, I wouldn't look any further than those 2. Diljit07 says, hope you're well, James. Who are 3 differentials you would have if you want free hit this week? Again, it's like, take something like Luis Diaz. I think it's a great pick, but I think he's going to be in the majority of free hit teams. So how differential is that? Ray and Aït-Nouri, by looks of it, is going to be in the majority of free hit teams. He's a differential now. So differentials in terms of free hit teams, actually. I'll tell you what I'd do, right? If I was on free hit this week, I'll tell you the team I'd go with. It would be something like Leno, Van Dijk, Aït-Nouri, Trippier, Salah, Diaz. I would still go Palmer, Harvey Barnes up front. I'd probably go Jimenez, Cunha and Isak. That's roughly what my free hit team would be, I think, if I was free hit. So again, something like Jimenez is obviously going to pick up quite a bit of traction following the confirmation of obviously Rodrigo Muniz being ruled out for Fulham, of at least this weekend. It sounds like he might be out for longer, by the way, as well. But I don't know how many of them are actually differentials. It's something like Trippier. I mean, Luis Diaz, Jimenez, I guess Harvey Barnes. Maybe some will stick with Murphy and go against this. Maybe Harvey Barnes is the one, maybe. But I think what are differentials now aren't necessarily going to look differentials on a free hit. And I think the teams I've selected from there, particularly Liverpool, Wolves, Newcastle, are going to be extremely popular. Don't overcomplicate it with the selections. And then I guess you're sort of looking from Chelsea, Fulham. So yes, Jimenez, Ryan Sessegnon I do think will start, but there's a little bit of maybe Alex Iwobi's one that would be a big differential. Perhaps like a Noni Madueke. I think Cole Palmer, as I said, I'd still go with if I was on free hit. It's affordable. There's a number of other people are not able to get there. I'd probably still stick him in. So Palmer's going to be a differential, but I'd give the 2 caveats to that. One, I do think Chelsea-Everton will probably be quite low scoring, but also he scored 4 in the same fixture last season. Drummer Austin says, hi James, bit of dilemma and not sure what path to take. I have 11 players playing for game week 34. Okay, this is part 1. Do I have to read the whole team? I'm never going to remember it once I speak through all the names, mate. Still haven't used the wild card and free hit is available. Can't decide if free hitting this week is best or to take a gamble in my 11 and hold for another game week. Wildcard 35 current plan, but feel team may be strong enough. Okay, so it's Sells, Colwell, Kirkes, Aït-Nouri. You've got same back three as me, different goalkeeper, and you're in a better position than me. I obviously don't have the free hit left. You've got Livramento as well, so that's all covered. Salah, Palmer, Bowen, Barnes, Isak, Rissa. Yeah, I probably wouldn't bother, mate. The thing is, in terms of when to use that free hit, again, this discussion we had yesterday with one of our patrons, is you've still got it left. Don't want to use it now. Gonna wild card next. It's like, which week for the free hit will become clear after this week. Once we've got the cup semis out the way and we know if there's going to be teams double in 36, it might be that it's not, right? And you go, right, I'm going to wild card for a team 35, 36, 37, and then I'm going to free hit in 38 and go like treble Arsenal, treble Bournemouth, treble Everton, and maybe double Liverpool, for example. So that will become clear. You don't have to make that choice yet if you're still wild card. I would recommend probably wild card in 35. On the face of it, John Roston, I think you don't look too bad this week, mate. You look stronger than me, let's put it that way, I would say. Lukey Boy 123 says, hi James, how do you think the Chelsea defence will line up tomorrow as considering Cucurella's attacking threat on free hit? Thanks, mate. And any luck on a ticket for Bodo yet? I have applied. We get 404 tickets. Probably about a 10% chance I'll get one. So with the closing for the application is later today. So probably either find out tomorrow or on Monday, I should imagine. Might not be till Monday. How will Chelsea line up defensively? I think it would be very similar. It might even be the exact same that started against Everton. Not Everton, because they're playing them this week. And Fulham, sorry. Probably Reece James at right back and then the two centre-backs, obviously Cucurella at left back. I think with that, you can expect Cucurella to push on to advanced positions. So if I was free hitting this week and going a Chelsea defender, Cucurella is the one I would pick. Spooky Saucefer says, hi James, on free hit, Pope and Cucurella or Leno and Trippier. 8 Nori and Trent are the other two starting defenders. Have Barnes and Isak from Newcastle. Pope and Cucurella or Leno and Trippier. Ultimately, it comes down to what do you prefer your coverage of? Is it Fulham or Chelsea? I'd probably take the Pope Cucurella option. I think of the two there. But having said that, the free hit team I just said was Leno and Trippier, wasn't it? So Chelsea's the one I'd probably skip, actually. Yeah, probably Leno, Trippier. It's close, that, though. And he says, hi, James, your ideal 7 attackers if you're on free hit. I think I just kind of covered that, so I'm going to skip, but thanks for the question. Diljit says, what do you make of the narrative that Spurs United do not deserve a Champions League spot next year due to their league form? Personally, I hope it's United Spurs final. I spoke about this on, I think, Tottenham Asked with Clayton earlier this week. Or was it the Clayton and James show? I can't remember. It's like complete nonsense, isn't it? This idea that Forest have had a brilliant season and they do deserve to qualify for Champions League, but if they suddenly missed out and finished 6th, then they would be more deserving of the spot than the Europa League winners. Sure, Tottenham and United have had awful league campaigns, but if they win the Europa League, they deserve to be in the Champions League, right? That's been the rule all season. Whereas it wasn't confirmed that 5th would be enough for a Champions League place, was it? So who's actually getting the backdoor entry? Spurs and United would have known from the start if they win the Europa League, they're going to the Champions League. That's always been the case. And I don't know. We're in a strange place if we're deeming that finishing 5th or 6th is more deserving of being in the Champions League than actually winning the secondary European competition. So, I think that's nonsense talk for clickbait headlines, actually. Sure, they've had terrible seasons. In terms of league campaign, the Forest deserve it more. Of course, yeah, and they're probably going to do it, by the way. But this idea that because Tottenham and United have had shit league campaigns, if they win the Europa League, they don't deserve to be in the Champions League. It's nonsense stuff, isn't it? Jack says, hey, James, interested to hear you rank the following main free hit defensive options from best to worst this week. 8 Norrie, Session on Trippier, Trent, Cucurella. Like, if you're going to put them all in an order like that, I'm going to put Trent top. But I prefer Van Dijk as a choice this week. I think Arne Slott's comments this morning don't give us the clarity that we'd want in terms of Trent or Bradley starting this week. I do think it will probably be Trent, but I don't think it's worth the risk when Tottenham don't defend set plays very well and Van Dijk is the clear dominant target from them. I would just go for Van Dijk if on free hit this week, personally. But if you're going to line them up like that, I'm still going to pick Trent first. Trippier, I think, over 8 Norrie, over Cucurella. I think Sessignon last. But all very good options. And there's a case to say might even be the best 5. Chris Bruce says, afternoon, James. Just a few free hit questions after the clash of correspondence. Would you go 2 Wolves attack, Cunha and Larson? Or 2 defenders, 8 Nori and Agbadu. Already got 2 Liverpool defenders, Pope, Murphy or Barnes. I would go Barnes over Murphy, I think, on free hit. I'd gamble that personally. In terms of the double attack or double defence, ultimately it's decided by others, isn't it? So I think I did a piece for our patrons on Wednesday saying I probably would go Cunha Larson, but now with the confirmed Muniz news, I probably would have a preference for Jimenez over Larson. Isak is obviously a shoo-in with that. So by default, if you're adamant on having treble Wolves, then it's probably double defensive. However, I wouldn't bother because there's other good teams to look from. I think there's a strong possibility that, the 5 teams we've mentioned, Wolves, Fulham, Newcastle, Liverpool, Chelsea, they're all potentially pretty good for a clean sheet this week. And I wouldn't deem a second Wolves, i.e. Agbadu, better than Trippier or Cucurella or Van Dijk or Sessegnon. I wouldn't actually. So I would just go to 2 players, mate. Hanny says, Palmer, yes or no? We got a lot of free hitters this week, haven't we? If on free hit, as said, I'm going to say yes. I think it's affordable. I had a team with him in. I still was looking at sort of like having Bruno Fernandes as like a first sub. So I would go with him, yeah. I would chance it as a talisman who, yes, we know is out of form, certainly in terms of at least his returns. But I would go with it, yeah. I would stick him in. Game Kid says, hi James, been treading water for what seems like forever. Any 2 differential free hit assets to potentially go big that are not Cole Palmer? I'm going to skip that because I covered it earlier. I think it's tough. It's really tough. With the forwards this week, there's so many you could pick from. We've mentioned Larson, Cunha, Jimenez, Isak. Evan Nilsson's a good pick. I think Danny Welbeck, if people particularly fancy Brighton to do well, is a good pick. I wouldn't rule out Nicholas Jackson. There's more forward options this week than I think the midfielders. And I don't think there's anything that's going to be kind of that out there that's surprising. Noni Madueke may be a name to throw in now. But I don't think there's going to be anything particularly surprising. Spooky Sorcerer says, do you think Barnes starts or Gordon? If the former, how many mins do you reckon he gets? Also, same question for Trent and Bradley. I mean, Trent Bradley is probably 60 minutes 30, one way or the other, roughly. So there's a danger. That's like a 58 and a 32, isn't it? Is a danger. I think Barnes over Gordon, yeah. I think if the game had been on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think Gordon probably would have started. But the fact it's a week break, Gordon still played against Villa, even though Gordon had been kind of back on the bench from what the Manchester United game onwards. I think Barnes will start again. I don't think what happened at Villa last week was on him. He still assisted the goal, didn't he, for Fabian Schär? So I think Barnes will play again, actually. Hanny says, what do you think about Welbeck over Raul Jimenez? I prefer Jimenez. I know a lot of the models and betting odd analytics have been quite high on Welbeck. I don't know if that's changed now following the Muniz injury. So look, Welbeck's minutes look pretty assured now with the João Pedro suspension and Rutter playing. I do think you can also spin that narrative to say, well, who's helping him? You might get it's sort of O'Reilly maybe might be the one that's kind of main support from midfield, perhaps Baleba and Ayari behind that, Mitoma and Minter perhaps high and wide. So who's getting close to him in central areas? So that narrative can be spun either way. Minutes great. Who's assisting him essentially? So I think preference is still for Jimenez for me. I'm fairly certain I won't be buying Danny Welbeck that today. Let's put it that way. And I very might be buying Raul Jimenez. Chris Bruce says, other dilemmas, start Palmer or Elanga, start Cliver in a 4-4-2, or start Raul 4-3-3, like and subscribe. Thank you. I think you do go Jimenez over all of them, don't you? The order of those midfielders for this week, I'd go Palmer, Cliver over Elanga. There's just the additional, obviously, who knows, Elanga might end up playing 120 minutes on Sunday. I think the fixture with Brentford is probably avoidable when there's so many other good options. Yvette says, keep free transfers or free hit for later. Can get to 9 good players for 34 using free transfers, or just can't tell because don't know about doubles, Tar. The thing is, though, if you free hit now with that, you're going to improve at least, obviously, five of your team, right? The free transfers plus another 2 buys, and you can obviously improve something else as well, presumably, unless you've got like a perfect 6. And those free transfers you still get, right? And you can use them to maneuver from 36 to 37. Or add doublers for 36 if you're short, if that's what you want to do. So, look, very difficult to answer when I can't see your team, right? But I think the answer might still be that it's best to free hit and just hold the transfers for later. Hasselbank is win says, Harry Kane in big moments, discuss. Do you trust him to win a trophy for his team in a big final when it really matters? I know you're his biggest advocate, but his record up to now is shoddy. I wouldn't necessarily say that I am his biggest advocate. I've spoken quite a bit over the last number of years about the problems of how you can't really go and be aggressive defensively off the ball with a Harry Kane up front because he can't move and press in the way that he did when he was a 23-year-old, right? So I certainly wouldn't say I was his biggest advocate. I would certainly defend him in terms of his record of big games. When he's played in finals for Tottenham as an underdog, or for England as an underdog. Italy and Spain were both better teams. So I don't think that should necessarily count against him. There's plenty of big players that we can think of who haven't scored in major finals. Isn't Mo Salah's record in major finals like not great, for example? No one's questioning him, are they? So I wouldn't read into that too much. I'm delighted that he's going to win the Bundesliga and get the kind of the monkey off his back from that perspective. So Gavin Richardson says, "Hey James, love Clash of Correspondence as usual this week. When do you find out if you're going to Santa's house or not?" As said earlier, that's kind of 90% likely that I'm not going to get a ticket, unfortunately. So, and even if I do, there's then a big hurdle to navigate in terms of actually being able to get there. So it's very unlikely. I expect news either tomorrow or probably more likely on some point on Monday. And you might get me going to Suj in the middle of a podcast. Sorry, got to pause because got some flights to book. Prashan Hajani says, "Hi James, thoughts on going Barnes and Murphy? Thoughts on Trent minutes? Thoughts on going both Cunha and Larson, or is Raul better pick to spread the risk? Thanks." I think, Prashan, thank you for the question. I think I've answered all of them already, so I'm going to skip, mate. JP says, "Hi mate, what's the differential for free hit in each position, please?" Okay, a little bit more spread. Differential each position. Let's go Alisson in goal, Virgil van Dijk defensively, Luis Diaz in midfield, Cody Gakpo up front. There you go. See where my thinking is. Liverpool got 12 in their last 3 home games against Tottenham and scored 6 at White Lane in December. JP says, "Hi mate, that's what I've done." Gav Richardson says, "Do you think Bruno Fernandes will play? As in, will he be on your predicted lineups?" 100%, yes. Bruno Fernandes is a certain star. I just think last week we shouldn't read too much into the benching against Wolves. Remember, they had 120 minutes against Lyon and it was pretty emotional, right? The way they won the game. So still came on and played the final half hour. He's had a whole week's break. There's the only way Bruno Fernandes doesn't play at start against Bournemouth on Sunday is if he's injured, and he's never injured. So that's the absolute certainty, Garen. I'd be amazed, astonished. I think, look, the West Ham game in 36, yeah, there's a chance for benching now. Possibly subject to, again, if United maybe had extra time and a few days before. Guess there's a small chance for benching at Brentford in 35 as well. But this week, no concerns. Nikolai Otney says, "James, if I can get to 9 mostly free hit template players with a -4, then is it worth avoiding a free hit and using assistant manager? Only weak points are Bowen and Areola." That's interesting. Again, can't see your full team, so it's nearly kind of impossible to answer, unfortunately. I'm just thinking about if you went assistant manager now, who do you pick? Because presumably you want to chain it on. Most of the teams with good fixtures this week have bad fixtures next week. Do you go Slot or Howe now and then move it on to something else next week, like Pep? Maybe it's move it on to go Slot or Howe now and then go Pep 35 and then 36. And obviously if he's got a double, that's even better. That's probably the route I'd take if I was going Arseman now. I don't hate it. Then that's booking you into free hit 37 or 38. Obviously to move the manager next week's also costing you another transfer. You could still set it 35 to 37. So Pep, Wolves, double if it happens, and then move to someone else in 37. Yeah, difficult one. I'd probably rather leave the Arseman a week. That's my instinct on that, Nikolai. Again, these questions are very team dependent, mate. Cold Slipper says, "Hi James, any suggestions for keepers on wildcard 34? Also got a bench boost to fit in somewhere, thanks." Okay, so I would look at, I tell you when I looked at, because I did, again, for the piece I did for our patrons earlier in the week, I did put together a wildcard draft. And I tell you the two keepers I went for, and this will probably really surprise. It was Pickford and Kepa were the two keepers that I picked on that. And the thinking behind that was Kepa good fixture this week. In 36, Bournemouth have Villa at home, which is okay. Could become a double with the Man City fixture getting added. And they've got Leicester at home 38. And then Pickford in 35, 37 has got Ipswich and Southampton at home respectively. So the thinking across that was I was getting home fixtures against all the promoted teams, possibly a double from Kepa in 36, and decent home game against the Manchester United that's probably going to have eyes on Thursday this weekend. So those were the two. Actually, and I didn't look at it in deep detail, but that was the one that I looked at on the draft this week, which I think is probably two goalkeepers that will be off radar for the majority at the moment. Ryan Max says, no question. Cheers for the content as always. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much, Ryan. Have a good one, buddy. JP says, also, what's your ideal front three on free hit? I'm going to skip that. I think we've done that. Gary Richardson says, BBC gossip column had a rumour that next Spurs manager is between Iraola, Silva and Parker. I think Silva is due a chance at a bigger club, underrated in my opinion. But it'd be Spursy to go Parker. Yeah, it would be very Spursy for Spurs to go Scott Parker, mate. Look, I'm being really, really honest with this. I'm not in love with any of the options that I'm hearing at the moment. I saw talks in some reports yesterday about Maurizio Pochettino and USA potentially being prepared to say, okay, yeah, we'll go for someone else because he's not started well with them. And although I've said several times over that I think Tottenham going back to Pochettino would be a mistake, I think Tottenham's next manager is pretty much doomed to fail anyway, and I probably prefer Poch over the other options that's getting mentioned at the moment. Thomas Frank is growing on me as a possible option that I'm warming to the idea to, but I'm not in love with that either. I kind of hope that Tottenham are going to find something that I haven't heard of, and I can just get behind it. So I'm not in love with any of them options. I think, yeah, all of them would be, I mean, Iraola and Silva would both improve the situation. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure that takes me to where I want to get to. I think with Iraola, there's a real danger that he'd do really well. We get back into Europe and then he's got the same problems Ange's got in terms of can he manage a team that plays twice a week? Is it going to struggle under those circumstances? You have to look at Bournemouth losing games like Ipswich at home in a midweek fixture this season. Yeah, scares me a bit, the amount of running they do. Silva, I think, has done an amazing job at Fulham with his band of misfits. Enough to take over at my club. I wouldn't be like Marco Silva got appointed. I'm not like, oh no, okay, cool, let's go. But I'm not in love with it either. Uros Milicevic says, hello James. Which teams would you double, triple up on free hit, and which players from those teams would you choose? Well, I read out the team, but what I can certainly say is it'd be treble Newcastle and treble Liverpool without any doubt. Then next in line is Wolves, but if picking like Jimenez, then I think it's only two Wolves players personally. And then it's a bit of Chelsea and Fulham. Prashan says, thoughts on Kirkes or Cucurella as the better pick this week? Preference with Cucurella. I fancy United to score more than I fancy Everton to score. It'll come down to that ultimately. Gavin says, my thoughts on Barnes versus Murphy is Barnes has a higher ceiling, but Murphy does crash the far post off the Livramento overlap and is likely to be 60 plus minutes. I'm being boring and going Lionel Murphy on free hit. I wish you luck, Gavin. I'll be on Murphy this weekend as well. Not because I'm on free hit, just that's the one I own. FPL Martial says, yes, James, would you go double Newcastle defence or attack? Attack, mate, yeah. Isak plus one of them bids. FPL Don says, hi, James. I'm thinking of taking a minus 16 to save my free hit for double game week 36. It also sets me up nicely for the rest of the season. FPL team projects me to gain 30 points overall doing it this way. Thoughts? Don't like it. Projection and reality are two different things. Not keen on that at all. A minus 16. You're never going to get me really give the thumbs up on the minus 16 ever, I don't think, unless your team was absolutely decimated. And I don't think 5 weeks is a long enough period for me to be comfortable about that, knowing that you say it lines up well, but what if 36 and 37 doesn't line up as well as we expect? The projections on FPL team also won't factor in the potential for certain players to double in game week 36. There's more that needs looking at here. So no, not keen. You may end up saving that free hit for a double that's not a double. I would not be taking the -16. I would be free hitting now, unless you really truly believe you're going to be left in a disastrous position for game week 35. And it is worth saying that a lot of the players that are really good this week have bad fixtures next week. Newcastle going to Brighton does not feel great. Fulham going to Villa definitely doesn't. Wolves going to Manchester City definitely doesn't. Chelsea playing Liverpool definitely doesn't. Liverpool also obviously play Chelsea in that same fixture. If you still have Bournemouth, there you go to Arsenal next week. It's also why this week's very good for a free hit for many people as well, right? Because a lot of these good assets this week do not have a good fixture next week. So you're taking a -16 to get in a number of these players and they don't look great next week. I'm not sure about it, Don, honestly, mate. Almost Seco says, hi, James. Excluding Newcastle assets, Nottingham Forest defence and Mo, who'd be your top outfielders to buy this week on a free hit 36 strategy, assuming current projections do not assume? 2-3 position per position. Thanks for the great work. So to buy this week specifically, again, a lot of these players have bad fixtures next week. There's a case to say something like Diaz or Van Dijk, just because it's Liverpool, is a better way to go. Cunha, Man City away, but then the rest of the fixtures are pretty good. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's great investing in many of the players. Welbeck maybe looking a bit longer now. You know, João Pedro's suspended for at least 30. You got Welbeck for West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Wolves away. Does that bring someone like Mitoma into your thinking? Estupinan. Take note, obviously, Van Heck being absent this weekend because of concussion protocol. Leaves him a little bit light at the back. I don't know, mate. I think you need careful consideration. When I look over the next... if I look over the next 3 weeks on my ticker, teams I've got top, City and Forest don't play this weekend. Then Fulham, then Brentford, then Leicester, Newcastle, Brighton. So still Newcastle, I guess. You may already have the investment there. Brighton may be the new one to consider, but I don't think they're in great form. Brentford's going to be so popular next week. Bumo Visser, and I think the likes of Nathan Collins or Mark Flecken as well. Craig Kakia says, give us the player to haul and to blank. Oh, that would be ruining Nico's video that's out later today, wouldn't it? That would be ruining it. Who did I go for a player to blank? I can't even remember who I chose. I think I might have chose Cole Palmer, even though I'd put him in free hit. I can't remember. Luis Diaz was the player I had to haul. There you go. Harry Timble says, hey James, I'm free hitting if Bellegarde is fit. Who would you replace Cunha with? Is Raul now a better bet than Strand Larsen? Yes to the last bit. This Vitor Pereira press conference, which is scheduled for about now, by the way, the Bellegarde information is really potentially important to what I might be doing, because I might be buying Cunha as part of a -4. So there is a little inkling. I do think Cunha will play, but there is a little bit of an inkling that thinks, yeah, if Bellegarde's back available, he was playing really well. Could Pereira take Cunha up? I just wonder if that's like creating a headline for no need to create a headline, and it creates a kind of a negative bubble around the team that's winning and playing really well at the moment. Like, do you know what I mean? If the team drop, Cunha's only a sub. It's like, okay, well, he's prioritising what's next, and the Wolves people, I think, will be okay with that. But is it creating kind of a news story that they don't need negativity at the moment? I think it's highly likely Cunha will play, but yeah, I may even be a little bit put off myself if Bellegarde is past fit to think, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go Jimenez and Diaz maybe as my two, possibly. So there's the answer ultimately. Anyway, Harry is probably Jimenez. CM Punk 2310 says, do you think in terms of doubles and the impact of double game week players, this season has been the worst of all? Yeah, probably, because we've not had the volume of doubles that we've had in the past. So yeah, probably is this season, but next season might be even worse. Sam McClear says, Jimenez out of form. Is he a good pick even with X minutes? So I agree with this. I think he's scored twice maybe since January the 5th. So it's 3.5 months. Doesn't exactly excite that much. But we do know that the X-Mins is obviously gone through the roof a little bit this week with Muniz's injury. Vinicius got 10 minutes from last week, and the game went away from him. So who knows? Maybe even Jimenez is in for the full match this week, possibly. So I don't disagree with the out of form. I think it's worth saying Muniz was in form, and I think we've had periods this year where Muniz has hit form, Jimenez has hit form, then it's gone back to Muniz. Muniz just had his bit before the injury. Maybe it'll be Jimenez's turn now, mate. So, but yeah, I think certainly if you're free hitting this week, I don't know about buying, but if you're free hitting this week, yeah, I think that's a good pick. And I suppose, as said, Fulham, of the teams that play this week, Fulham are top of my ticker over the next 3 fixtures. I did say Forest don't play. It feels like they don't play. Don't play till Thursday, obviously. But Fulham are obviously near the top, with Jimenez looking like the likely talisman over the next 3. And Muniz, judging by Silva's comments yesterday, Muniz might not be back this season. So you might have Jimenez for Southampton, Villa, Everton. It's not bad. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Colin Johnson says, hi mate, best double defence on free hit. Bumo, Diaz or Murphy. Best double defence on free hit, I would say, is probably Newcastle. But I'd want 2 attackers, ultimately. Bumo, Diaz or Murphy. Diaz would be top of the shop there for me. Hemdog says, hi James, hope you're well. What's your thoughts on the Trent Bradley comments from Slot today? Also, do you think Howe will shake up left wing for Newcastle now he's back post the Villa defeat? I'm sure Eddie Howe still had a little bit of an input in the team that Newcastle were picking. So obviously it's great to see him be back on the touchline this weekend. I've kind of already answered Hemdog in terms of early in the stream with Trent Bradley. Yes, I think Trent will play, but it could well be 60-30 in terms of the minutes. And no, I do still think Barnes will play. Craig Catcher says, give us, done that, mate. Gavin says, will 8 Nori be on your captain pick list tomorrow? No, I don't think any defenders will be. And do you think Trent plays? Covered. I'm doubtful and share, sadly, after Howe's presser, the most truthful manager ever. Yeah, there's a difference between telling the truth and lying. Is he the most truthful? Maybe not. Does he lie? Also, maybe not. Fabian Schär is avoidable if you're on a free hit, for those who are unaware. He was taken off late at Villa because he was feeling his hamstring was tight. Eddie Howe has said this morning is a little bit of doubt. It's not worth the risk, is it? Just go for one of the other 3. Omar says, Shane Larson or Cunha? Preferences with Cunha. But let's see what this Vital Pereira press conference gives us. David says, best 3 strikers on a wild card. Worth benching Marmoush and going with 2 this week. Probably yes. Might be the answer for that, David, because I think at the moment the projections would be obviously City Villa the double. And again, I recommend, I know I said on Monday's pod, for those of you who don't normally watch Clayton and James, please watch the start of it from Wednesday, because I know on Monday I said to sort of remind me to speak about 36 and 37 fixtures, and we forgot. So I covered it on the start of that podcast in terms of what I think may happen in 36, 37, subject to what the cup final is. At the moment, the projection would still be City and Villa to double in 36 as it stands. So if you're planning attacking players from City Villa, I think top of the shop is Marmoush. Then it's arguably Rodgers. So there's a case with some really good defences this week to maybe go 4-4-2 on wildcard this week. I think I would probably look at it at going, certainly Isak would stay. I mean, wildcard and take him out against Ipswich is not right, I don't think. So Isak would stay. And then it's a case of, do you go Cunha, Jimenez and plan one to Visser, or just start with Visser? Or you might prefer just to go with Wood now. Might be the way to go. You go Wood now because I think Forest fixtures are good to the end. You go to Wood, Marmoush, Isak. Maybe you plan to go Isak even to Visser next week and move the money around that way. It'd be a brave call, but something maybe to consider. On that wildcard draft that I put together, I went with now Isak, Marmoush, Cunha with the plan to move to Visser next week. Top 10 Travel says, hello James, good afternoon, hope you're fine. What do you think as well back as differential this week? Cheers mate, God bless. Covered. Minutes again like Jimenez look great, but who's the support cast? Adam Stevo says, hi James, love the content. Would you do Saka to Boomer from -4? Already done Mateta to Wood. Ultimately, yes, I would. This one's very different to the goalkeeper one because you're going to carry this longer, presumably. If you're wildcarding 35, not sure. I think there's other players I'd go and pick. But yeah, if you've used the wild card and you're running to the end, there's full justification in that transfer, in my opinion. Charles says, hi James, Bumo or Palmer, Barnes or Murphy, two to pick, two Murphy, two pick one, free hit 34. Right, so if we're free hitting this week, I'm going Palmer Barnes on that. I presume what you were trying to say was Barnes or Murphy, pick one of those two. Imo Dork says, hi James, thanks for your work. Was this the worst bench boost week on average in the last 5-6 years? Are we too obsessed with targeting double weak players, or was the schedule to blame? Thanks. I don't know historically about other weeks. And listen, I've seen some great bench boosts out there this week. I've seen a number in the 20s. I haven't seen one knocking about. It was a legit bench boost, was in its like its 30s this week. So still some good ones out there. It won't be for everybody that it's been kind of underwhelming. I think there was always the danger of getting stuck with the Newcastle players, and Newcastle maybe not doing well at Villa as transpired. Game week 32 didn't particularly work out for anyone either. There will be a huge bias to this. You might remember me saying a number of weeks ago about the bias people would have about free hitting in a blank because game week 29 was so bad last year. And not using that as a reason not to free hit in a blank game week this year. And also because the doubles have not worked out for bench enabler players this season doesn't mean that will be the case next year. But in terms of the schedule, this is so likely to be what it is again next season. It's going to look very similar as far as we're aware at the moment. So the days, I've spoken about it several times, the days of hoping for 10 teams to double is now extremely unlikely unless something unforeseen happens. So again, I've bench boosted in game week 1 the last 2 years. This year went very well. The year before, the returns went well, but I think it was a mistake in hindsight. The fixtures in game week 1 ultimately are going to have a huge bearing on this. And if they look as good as they've done over the last 2 seasons in game week 1, I'm going to bench boost in game week 1 again. And I warned about this, that yes, we obsess. And it's natural. There's no one's to blame here. Cool, I want a double, I want a double, I want a doubler. But the schedule is so different now that you've even got to think, and again, this is a warning for game week 36. If Aston Villa are adrift of the top 5, by the time they play Tottenham in the Wednesday of game week 36, if Villa win this weekend, right? And then Villa have got an FA Cup final 3 days later, what is the Villa team going to be against Tottenham? It's not going to be good, is it? How many players, truthfully, are going to play? Rodgers probably, because it's just Rodgers. But the majority of Villa players are not going to start Saturday, Wednesday, and then the FA Cup final on Saturday, right? Emi Martinez, maybe another one. Otherwise, what's the point? Tottenham would have a Europa game on the Thursday in the Arctic Circle, then Palace on the Sunday, full rotation, and then probably play a better team against Villa on the Wednesday with possibly a Europa final the following Wednesday, right? Who's going to play twice? Like, obsess over it as much as you want, but the reality is, whether Forest double or not in 36, they've still got Leicester at home either way. Who's the better picks? Well, okay, well, Forest then get a double. Cool, well, at least the first fixture was always Leicester, so that's good news. Yes, and it's no one's fault, it's natural. You see the double fixture, you know what the expected points are, you aim for the stars. I always say, put yourself in a position to be lucky. So I certainly wouldn't blame anyone for chasing doublers, but yeah, the dream doubles scenario from years gone by where you could say, right, I'll have treble from them, and then I'll have talisman from the rest. It's gone. It's unlikely to come back again unless something unforeseen happens, weather, high profile, passing away, etc. Next up is FPL Joe says, hi James, on free hit, would you prefer Van Dijk Trent with Pope or Livramento and Alisson? Van Dijk route, mate, as I've spoken about near the start of the stream. Liam C says, afternoon James, I'm currently on Cunha captain and Strand, Larson and Isak. Is Jimenez really that dangerous to me? The danger there might be captaining someone who might not start. And again, as covered, I'm sure he probably will. I'm going to keep looking for this Vissel Pereira news conference information. But I wouldn't be sticking the armband on Cunha. If Bellegarde is past fit, I would not be sticking the armband on Matthias Cunha, mate. Owning him would be great and live with that. I don't think in any case, I don't think he's a better choice than Isak for captaincy this week, mate. As said at the start, if you are taking Mo on this week, I would just be doing it with Isak. Alex Barrett says, afternoon, James. Would you take Mateta, Eze, or Vardy out this week to get up to a full 11? Well, ultimately, one's a defender, one's a midfielder, one's a forward. Who do you want to buy, mate? I would think, without knowing that, the best answer I can give you is to remove Mateta. So here we go. This is from Liam Keane, who's very well connected. I think it's with the Wolves Star. I think he works from. Jose Sarr is okay and working with the team. Bellegarde and Hwang trained yesterday, and I believe they can help the team. Read into that whatever you think. I see our friend Flapjack is saying if I was on free hit, I'd have Bellegarde. He might be on a wind up. He might not be, knowing him. So Bellegarde trained yesterday. Make of that what you will, can your owners. Craig says, mate, listen, once is enough, mate. Honestly, it's really boring for everybody else. Have a good weekend. Billy Taylor says, yes, Jimbo, my current squad has 6 template players and Connor Bradley. 1 free transfer and no other chips left apart from the free hit. I know you can't see my team, but do you prefer using the free hit this week or in 36? You might have Treble Forest sitting there, right? And I think, well, that looks good for 37, 36. You might already have a load of Brentford involved and they've got like Ipswich away. So, yeah, there is a heavy influence, Billy, in terms of the preference. But what I would say is I think this is a great week to free hit. I don't think we can be short at 36s. Owen Wilson says, do you think going Barnes and Murphy is too risky on free hit? I like the upside. Yeah, Owen, you've already answered your own question there, mate, and I don't need to add anything, mate. You like it, you crack on, mate. Nihar says, hi, James. Can we have an early player you think will haul this week and popular player you think will... I've done it, right? Nico's got the video. I can't remember who I said would... I think I said Connor Palmer. I said Connor Palmer as the player to blank. I remember this now because I warned... Yeah, he scored 4 goals against Everton last season. I'd still put him in on a free hit, even though I think that. So, yeah, I've gone Diaz and Palmer, respectively. Okay, Luis Diaz, I want to buy this week, and I think I'm highly likely to do so. Adam says, hi, James. Between Cunha, Wood and Visser, who would you pick for the run-in? Free transfer, Boomerang this week too. Thanks, all the best. For all 5 weeks that are left, my preference from that would be Visser over Wood. Then Cunha last, I think, actually. Stahis, hope you're well, mate, says, hi, I'm going to try and remember your name one day, mate. Thank you. Who Newcastle mid would you get on free hit? I think Gordon has a great chance of starting as in an easier game to start after his subs. I'm going to contradict and say I'd be going Barnes. I'd chance it, personally. And the one thing I would say about Harvey Barnes that is a little bit of a blessing as well, if he doesn't start, he will get good minutes off the bench. And it's the sort of player that has shown historically can return under that scenario. Excuse me. Lee Chowcraft says, hi, James. Do you think Trent starts or play Kirkes? I do think Trent will start, but my confidence in that wouldn't be much higher than sort of 65, 70%. If you've got Trent, you've got to play him, haven't you? Shout out, Butters. Hope you're well. Almost says, follow up on Best Buy's question. Please swipe left if already covered. Is that the bad way, is it? If you don't like her. Thoughts on Trent and Cunha to buy this week if on free hit 36. Vardy, Saka to keep sell. Cheers and good luck for the week. I wouldn't be buying Trent at this moment. What if you buy him and he don't start and then you got the repetition next week? And what if they go, right, he's in, and then, you know what, it's announced he's going to leave, and then Bradley plays the last couple of games. I wouldn't be buying him. Cunha, more of a case to do so of the two, if that's what you want to do. Sebastian Elcock says, play it your way is always your mantra, James. Am I crazy for backing Salah for triple captain this week than saving for 36? Nope, not crazy at all, mate. But also, my advice very much last week was for those who wanted to use the triple captaincy to do it, and pretty much all the best assets last week blanked, didn't they, unfortunately? So I don't mind it. I think in terms of single fixtures left for Mo, this is the best one. I mean that genuinely, and I think that's fair. You only have to look at the league table. So if you want to use it on Mo, yes, this week, I would personally hold it for 36 in the hope of potentially getting 2 games out of Marmouche. And again, knowing that My worst case scenario is I still get one of Southampton away or Bournemouth at home as a worst case scenario, and I might get both. And obviously, if it isn't a double, then he's kind of a certain starter against Southampton. The update on Haaland, by the way, this week is that he's not training yet. So with the weekend of 34, the weekend of 36 is 2 weeks away. I'd suggest that there's every chance he's not going to play again this season. So if it were me, and I wasn't blocked by any other chips, is obviously really important to clarify, I'd wait for 36. But I think Mo's the best captain this week by a distance. There is personal bias in that maybe, but I don't think many people are going to disagree with that either. OP Talent says free hit 34, Sanchez and Livramento, or Pope and Cucurella playing Trippier and Aït-Nouri. I just think that Cucurella is a more exciting pick than Livramento is ultimately what will decide that. And you also go Trippier and Ray and Aït-Nouri as well. So yeah, I'd go Cucurella, I think. Ian Parring, Cloud, Sky Fantasy Football Show says, afternoon, mate. After all the effort from the FA to get their cup a higher profile in the domestic calendar this season, how mad will they be that the second semi-final might coincide with the EPL title being won? I'd not even considered that. Yes, obviously City Forest is the same time as Liverpool probably clinching the title. They didn't have to put it as a 4:30 kickoff, right? They could have put it as a 2 o'clock kickoff. It's worth saying. And the Liverpool-Tottenham game was arranged first, wasn't it? So if they were that bothered, and I'm sure they probably could have picked the 2 o'clock slot, which probably would have been better for the people from Manchester and Nottingham to try and get home from, I should imagine, as well. J23 says, take a -4 hit for a defender to get to 10 players or just field the 9. Again, a little bit dependent, right? Because if it's a player that you're going to end up buying for the run-in anyway, it's a case to say, get on with it, right? If you're wildcarding next week, then it's probably a no. But what I would say is there are a lot of defenders with huge upside this week. You know, from the 5 teams we've kind of mentioned, Sessegnon, there's risk. Trent, there's a little bit of risk. Cucurella, Aït-Nouri, Trippier. You probably wouldn't buy a Trippier, I don't think. Free hit, great. I don't think you buy. Cucurella, shite fixture next week. Aït-Nouri, shite fixture next week. But certainly with Aït-Nouri, you'd think, that's good for the run-in. And I wouldn't even mind, like, Milenkovic, I think it's great for the run-in. Brentford at home this week. Yes, he's got to get through Sunday as well, which is a little bit of a concern. But if he's fit, he'll certainly play against Brentford. 4-day gap. No problem with that whatsoever. So Milenkovic as one to pick up on. And even we haven't mentioned Milos Kerkez for this week as well, though I certainly accept Bournemouth's fixtures after this weekend are not good. Matthew Kroll says, bench Kluivert, Luis Diaz or Jimenez. With reluctance, that'd have to be Kluivert, mate. Prashan says, the double Newcastle midfield double up thoughts. I think I've covered. It's fine if that's what you want to do. Stephen Hinchy says, what would your rough game week 34 wildcard structure look like? Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll read out this draft team that I put together. And this is based on only making the one transfer, which was Cunha to Vissa in 35. Obviously, there would be other free transfers that would get used. But said Kepa and Pickford, Vardiol, Livramento, Milenkovic, Aït-Nouri and Collins. Salah. I'd still put Palmer in, actually, at the moment. Bowen, Elanga, Bumo, Vissa, Isak, Cunha. There you go. Copy that if you want. Probably do shit. I think the thing for wildcards this week is you've got to consider Nottingham Forest and Brentford way more than I think free hitters should probably overlook the fixture in most scenarios. Chris Gray says, hi James, is Sarr fit this week? It sounds like it, mate. Looking at starting him in my free hit. Also thoughts on Mitoma. I mean, in any case, Chris, just make sure you've got a goalkeeper that's on the bench that would play. I would give a bit of genuine, serious advice to you. Don't go Sanchez as your backup goalkeeper, just in case Maresca decides to pull a Jorgensen one. But you know, Leno, Alisson, Pope are all very secure. Kepa at Bournemouth, they should all be pretty secure. For Bruggen, if you really want to do that, probably wouldn't. Top 10 travel says, hope you're well, James. What do you think? Well, better's differential. I'm fairly certain I've already answered that. Connor Moore. Sorry, I've lost you, Connor. I'll find you, mate. He says he hopes. Connor Moore, got you. Used free hit by accident instead of bench boost in last game week. Disaster. I know another goat who did that. Shout out, Mark. Love you, mate. So now I have 5 players playing this week. Triple Newcastle, Areola and Salah. Have 3 transfers. Best players for the rest of the season. Christ on a stick. Now this is one. You've got 3 free transfers. Under your circumstance, be justified in taking a -8. I think 3 free transfers. So 5, get yourself up to 10. Prioritize attacking players where possible. Because again, a lot of these players for this week don't look great next week. I'd be looking at Forest and Brentford pretty strongly. Brighton, Fulham. You've obviously got Newcastle assets on board. That's fine. A lot of the best options, as said, do not have good fixtures next week. So I'd be very, very cautious of that. But yeah, I'd be looking at the Forest Brentford game a lot. And even if it meant now, I'm going to have to go Milenkovic, Alanga, Bumo, Vissa. And it might not feel right now, but I'd probably still do it. I'd get on with that sort of thing because those players, I think, would be pretty popular next week. You never guess what Clash of Correspondence is next week. Himanshu says, hi, James. What are the chances of Jota starting? I think the front 3 will be Diaz, Gakpo, Salah. My instinct is, and Arne Slot may think very differently, is it's set up for them to have a party at the weekend. I think the starting 11 will be the 11 players who have probably contributed the most to Liverpool's season. It's also what makes me think that Trent probably will start. I also think Robertson will start. So it's Alisson, Konate, Van Dijk. I think, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. And then I think it's Diaz, Gakpo, Salah for that reason. So that's what I think the Liverpool team will be. I wouldn't go Jota on a free hit. He'll certainly get minutes. Don't think there's much doubt about that. And against a team like mine, there's every chance he'll return as a substitute. But I had Jota quite a bit to start the season. I think it was fine. I don't think the returns have truly been there since he's come back from injury. It wouldn't be a consideration at this moment. Bozza says, have you ever picked a player based on anything not football related? I randomly dreamt last night that Trippier got a brace against Ipswich. So when I woke up, felt like I had to have him in my team. Yeah, but he's a good player to pick for this week anyway, right? So the answer to your question is no. Pokemaster Marcello says, hi, James. Hope you're good, bro. Can you wish Palace good luck at Wembley on Saturday? Yes, I can. However, may I wish Aston Villa greater luck. And I'm really sorry, but the team I want to win most in the FA Cup semi-finals this weekend is Aston Villa. Because I know that probably brings the Villa Tottenham going forward to the Wednesday, and it's got nothing to do with doubles and blanks. It just means if my team gets to the final, we've got 7 days break before the final. So that's my priority. Therefore, I want Aston Villa to win this weekend. But I do wish you the very best of luck, and also to our Man City and Nottingham Forest followers as well. Stephen Hinchy says, can you share the Patreon wildcard draft? Done it. FPL Sparta says, all right. Oh, hello, mate. Freddie Ebbing says, when to play Arseman and what team? It's rough. It's not good. I think a lot of us were looking at Pereira for the end. I tell you what, we will have a look at it more next week. I think, as said, if you were going now, I think it's Howe or Slot, and then on to Pep. I think if you were starting now, but I'd probably wait, see what the outlook is after this next game week. And we'll look at it. Remind me, we'll have a look at it this week on something. FPL Uproar says, hey James, best of luck this week. You too. Mike Pearson says, hi James, on free hit, start Jimenez or Boomo. Cheers. I would go Jimenez. Yeah, I would. BI wants differential attackers. I think I've been through that. Simon Pardo says, wildcard 34, bench boost 36. Start with 3 Newcastle now, and then transfer out for Forest Brentford for 36. We'll go big on Forest and Brentford now to save transfers to react to any doubles blanks game with 38 punts. So the answer lies somewhere in the middle. So I think on that wildcard draft I had, and obviously I only had 1 player that blanks this week. I think it was Vardiol, but with a plan to add Marmouche back in. Or was it starting with Marmouche? No, I'm just looking at it again. Plan to get Marmouche back in next week. I had 3 Brentford, 2 Forest, 2 Newcastle. So the balance, Simon, is probably somewhere in the middle. Nemanja says, Cunha or Wood, if not on free hit? I think Wood then. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm more likely to buy Cunha rather than Wood, but I'll be wildcarding next week. So it's a bit different. But run until the end, I think it's Wood. Yeah. Julio Pena says, hi James, which team would you double up on defense and which would you triple up on attack on free hit? I wouldn't, mate. I would just have coverage of one from 4 teams defensively. I wouldn't double up on any of them. I think they've all got strong attacking options and stuff as well. So again, I wouldn't, I'm going to go Agbadou and then not go like Trippier or Cucurella instead. No. Nemanja says bench boost 36, free hit 37, or free hit 36, bench boost 38. Would have 6-7 doublers in 36 with transfers if the doublers work out as you think. The answer to this question, Nemanja, I can answer for you next week, mate. It's not one for now. And what reality, here's just a little tip for you anyway. What are you going to do this week, considering the teams that would potentially double in 36 blank? Unless you think, oh, I'm going to go Wolves now, or I'm going to go Bournemouth now. Maybe, with the potential for them to double. Are you going Bournemouth now? Probably not. Are you going Tottenham now? Definitely not, right? That's what you're possibly looking at as extras. What are you going to do this week that's going to change your decision? Truthfully, just something to think about. So you don't need to think about it now. All right, let the weekend play its course, and we'll decide it next week. Top 10 Travel says, dear Mr. James, I hope you're fine. How many times are you going to ask me about World Bet, mate? People who just put the same question over and over again just get muted, I'm afraid to say. Have a good weekend. KP says, hi James, hope you're well, mate. Your thoughts on replacements for Mateta, Sarr and Savinho. I'm going to keep my free hit for 37. Have a good weekend, mate. So it's going to fall into the same line of teams. Sorry, guys, it's boring. But yeah, look, you've got midfielders to get rid of there. So maybe Diaz, maybe Barnes. I don't think there's much from Fulham Wolves I'd want in midfield. Ironically, Cole Palmer might be an answer here if you've got money in the bank. Yes, believe it or not. I don't think you go towards Bournemouth at this stage. I wouldn't go to the Brighton mids, I don't think, personally. So Luis Diaz is arguably top of the shop, the midfielders. Up front, it's all the names that I've been mentioning already, mate. Right, I'm going to cover up to... do you know what? No, I'm not going to get through them all. Oh, I might do. Right, I'm going to do 10-second answers. I'm going to throw through these. Chris Gray. Also, would you go Murphy and Barnes over having Isak? No. William Doyle. Possibly asked before. If you want a free hit, would you play Sessegnon for Fulham? No. Thank you, Neil Kager. Russell Baker says, hi, James. I know goalkeeper wildcard 35 has been answered, but Alisson gets more than 6 often with clean sheet, or Bentley could be EO differential. Definitely don't want to go Bentley now. Bellegarde starts. Cunha drop? Question. I still think Cunha will probably play. Gakpo to Rogue to play over Welbeck. Yeah, it just doesn't need to be done, does it? Just in case Jota did play. I think, Russell, I don't know if this relates back into the idea of having taken a -4 for a goalkeeper. You're absolutely right. Quite often, Alisson could well end up in more bonus, right? But it's just as likely that he ends up with a 2-pointer, mate. That's the reality. Paolo says, best rank chasing front three. Welbeck, Larson, Raul Jimenez. Yes, not too bad. Ashley Woods says, play Dallo or take a -4 for another attacker. Dallo should be okay for this. It should be a starter. I'd be pretty confident of that. Gavin says, from everything said on the stream on free hit, Raul over Larson, Diaz over Bumo, Virgil over Trent, and is Larson better than Cunha after the Wolves star update? I'm going to say no at the moment, but I'll give it a little bit more thought and see what some of the feedback is from the Wolves fans following that announcement from Liam Kane. Carrie says, hi James, given the press conference info, would you take a bet with 1, 2 or all of Barnes, Murphy, Gordon? Again, just Barnes. Sessegnon and Trent on free hit 30. I'm going to say no. Thanks for the great content this season, by the way. Very welcome. Gavin says, thanks for the content. I'm intermediate plus tier patron. Highly recommend to you all. Do you get more likes on a deadline stream or Ask James percentage wise? I probably ask for it more on the deadline stream. So if you're watching live now, watching on repeat, if you've got this far, presumably you thought the stream was okay, smash a like, please. Hit that sub button as we approach 20k subscribers as well. David James Whiteway, Fox's Classic versus McVitie's Gold Bar. Fox's. Relic returns, says, simple one, James. Has the Premier League lost its magic this season? No, it will get it back. Harry Trimble says, team news. I've got that, yeah. Cheers, Harry, says, you dirty slut. Yeah, he's not with me today. Divianch says, hi James, I've recently started writing a weekly FPL newsletter. I wanted to ask if you could recommend a few FPL books with in-depth knowledge on the subject. I'll shout one for you. It's, one of Raptors, isn't it? Is it the Mind Game? It's called. It's a good book which Ross very kindly donated to me. Thank you, Ross. Is it called The Mind Game? I forgot. I've had a mind blank now. I think it's called The Mind Game. It's psychological impact of playing fantasy football. Anyway, there's one for you, mate. Goran Popovic says thoughts on Palmer versus Bumo versus Cliver. Palmer's the pick. Rahul says, don't know why managers are so obsessed with Leno. Fulham have managed only one clean sheet in their last 5 Premier League matches, whereas Southampton managed to score in 4 out of their last 5 Premier League matches. I don't think there's an obsession, mate, but you might want to look at what Leno scored in the last blank game week. Ottoman says, Evan Nilsson differential, don't mind that. Mike Oxlong, how much for a reach around? Where am I reaching to? Sanju says, can you answer my question, James? What's the question? Can't see it. And Spooky Sorcerer says, will Spurs go full strength this week or a rotated team? I think it will be close to full strength, but the priority is minutes. I think things like Van der Ven will play like a maximum of 60. I think transfers will be planned in advance, subject to, you can obviously have injuries on the day, but the substitutions will be planned based on minutes rather than what's happening tactically in the game. Right, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, guys. Thank you very much to everyone who's contributed to the chat. I think that's pretty much covered off everyone's questions. Big Chief, if you want a free hit draft, have a look right at the start of the stream, watch back. And Raj, my choice from your selections there will probably be Justin Cliver, actually. Right, if you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Lots more content to come from you next week. So you'll be back with me for the game review podcast on Monday. Ask James, there might not be one next week. That depends a little bit on results over the weekend. That will become clear why on Monday. So it might be on Patreon. So yeah, support the show on www.patreon.com/planetfpl if you can afford to do so, if you want to support the show, or if you would like access to additional content. Deadline stream will be on YouTube at not 11, that would be late, 10 a.m. UK time tomorrow morning. Play it your way, everyone. Please be nice to each other, and for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.